You're listening to another great podcast in the MyMac Podcasting Network.
News, views, security stories, technology, and all sorts of other related chit-chat that catches our attention. Welcome to the Essential Apple Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode, which is, of course, the contractually obligated WWDC follow-up. And this week, I am joined by semi-regular contributor Donny. Hello, Donny.
Hello. I don't remember signing a contract.
And we have with us the fabulous Weyhan Ng, the eccentric iOS developer. Hello, Weyhan.
Hello, I'm here again for the annual post WWDC podcast.
That's not the only time you've been on. That's not the only time you've been in.
But I've been on all the since last year's WWDC. So maybe I'm planning to make this a tradition.
Well, why not? Why not? Well, yes.
We'll put it in your contract.
Yeah. It's not worth the paper it's not written on. Right. Oh dear. Right. Well, of course it was WWDC, and I suppose before we go anywhere, dig further into it, I thought I'd start off by saying, what did we feel about this year's WWDC overall? I will kick off by saying I thought it was one of the most vibrant and actually exciting WWDCs for several years.
In the Apple ecosystem, lots of developers actually refer to WWDC as the geeks' Christmas, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is the Christmas of all Christmas. It is huge. Even running up to it, all the rumors and stuff, and even that, there are so many things still not covered by the rumors. So I have spent the whole week, following all the sessions and stuff, and I still cannot finish, wrapping my mind around the whole event. Just the keynote alone is like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was huge. It was huge. Yeah. So much stuff. And I think we'll just sort of dig into bits as they come to us, I think, because, the keynote was 2.5 hours long. And if we tried to dissect all of it, this podcast would be about 8 hours long. So
even then it would be tight.
Yeah, probably. We'd be pushed for time even then. So I think we'll just there's a load of links in the show notes, listeners, for various things that caught my eye. But to some extent, we're not really going to follow any sort of particular show notes. We're just going to go where the whim takes us, as it were. So, Donny, what was your feeling about the keynote?
I think it was probably, as you said, the most lively keynote, not only for WWDC, just in general, that they've had in a while.
Yeah,
all the presenters seemed really excited about it, and
yeah, that's one thing. They're always so excited about everything all the time. Have you never noticed that?
This seemed more genuine.
Yes, it did. I know. Yeah, it's just the thing. It's like their stock phrase though, and as they run onto the stage and they say, "I'm so excited to tell you about," fill-in as applicable. But yes, this year I think they were actually genuinely excited. There was one piece that caught my attention, actually, which was right at the very end. And I think it was a subtle jibe from Tim Cook to possibly some of the tech press, because he pointed out, thank you, and how to describe it? Several things here have been many years in the making, and he was quite pointed about that. And I think that was a distinct kind of, two fingers to you, on the years when you've said we've had nothing to release. Well, actually, that's because we've been building up to this one, and it was huge. So many things. Where should we?
The thing is, the thing that amazed me the most is so many people lost their mind over the Mac Pro, the iPad OS, the rumored marzipan stuff. So many people lost their mind.
Yeah, I mean, I guess obviously the Mac Pro was the big, probably not really the biggest thing, but it was the most obvious,
The most expensive.
most expensive thing. Well,
Most
is
shiny.
Is it expensive? I'm not convinced that it is that expensive. I mean, I know it's
for me, it's expensive.
Well, yeah,
but it's for what it is. I would assume it's not. Parts of it might be, but
yeah. I mean, I know that the one they're showing is $6,000 basically. Is probably fairly basic, but and I know if you ramp it all the way up, you're going to be talking at. I mean, somebody pointed out that if you were to actually buy 1.5 terabytes of RAM, that would actually cost you about $18,000, maybe more. But
for the companies that will be ramping it up, it really isn't expensive for them. It's what they need.
No, it's not.
It'll bring them more money than they're putting out.
And I'm pretty sure. I mean, we've had some discussion in the Slack, and Mac Jim brought up the suggestion that's been put about online by various tech journalists that somehow there's a gap between the top end of the quote unquote prosumer market, so basically your iMac Pro, and this new Mac Pro, that there's no, as it were, Mac Pro for prosumers, but actually there's not that much difference between the cost of an iMac Pro and the starting price of the Mac Pro.
The thing is, I understand what they are trying to say. What it is that they want iMac Pro price that has modular feature like the Mac Pro. But then again, if you want the modular the Mac Pro, I am questioning whether the price can be go down to that level.
Yeah, well, I guess it probably could, because obviously we had the not the trash can Mac Pro, but the original cheese grater, as was the G5 and then the Intel Xeon Mac Pro, and that yes, that did not start at super pro prices, but I think realistically that most buyers are perfectly well served with the iMac and the iMac Pro.
Definitely.
And a lot of the people who are, bemoaning the lack of a modular tower Mac at the sort of prosumer are, they're a very, very small minority of people. And the people who really need a modular Mac Pro with the ability to stick in 4 graphics cards and 1.5 terabytes of RAM and all, they don't care. They don't care how much it is, really.
Oh yeah, I mean, we are talking about those people who buy equipment like the reference monitor they were talking about, like 40,000 per monitor.
Yeah, 43 grand a monitor. Exactly.
Yeah, like this is a huge discount for them.
Yeah, I mean, even if they were to be paying 40,000 for one with all the gubbins in it.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think it's expensive, and I've brought it up before. I remember the £9,000 2FX. So don't come whining to me that that a machine of that power starts at £6,000 or $6,000. So,
based on what Apple's done in the past, I suspect that the iMac Pro will drop in price within the next year.
It's also possible.
It's possible. Maybe they'll introduce a more basic model.
Or they will ramp it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
But
they don't want it to have the same price as the Mac Pro.
No, but they could keep the price the same and increase the spec.
Right.
Yeah, but the real price thing about the Mac Pro is not really the Mac Pro, right? We are talking about the external display, right?
Oh yeah.
The stand is like $1,000.
Yeah, the stand. Now, that's the thing about that is I think that was a real PR fail because it's not really about whether or not the stand is $1,000. I mean, it supports 2 monitors, I think, and they attach magnetically, and it has it does rotate to portrait mode and a whole load of other things.
Yeah.
So in and of itself, and again, looking at the target market, if you're going to be paying £20,000-30,000 for your setup,
this is considered very cheap.
It's peanuts, and most of them probably don't want it. Because most of them will probably have studio setups with monitors anyway. No, you don't have to buy the monitor. Nobody says you have to buy that.
It's not your only option out there.
You don't have to buy that monitor. All right, I know they're saying it comes. It's 5,000. They would have done, in my mind, they would have been done a lot better to say, here's this monitor, told you all about it, and then said it's $6,000, and people would have gone, yeah, okay, and then they could have said, but if you already have, Visa mount arms and all the whatnot in your studio, we will sell it to you without the stand for just $5,000. They'd have got applause for that instead of everybody sucking their teeth. Because did you hear it? I mean, when they said, and the stand is $999, people went. You could actually hear it on the soundtrack of the audience going. So, but if they at that crowd, if they'd said it was $6,000 and you can have it without the stand and we'll knock $1,000 off, they'd have had bloody standing ovation. So that was just a poor presentation, really.
No, but they did get a standing ovation, when they revealed that they have views.
Oh yeah. So over, yeah, it comes with wheels. Has anybody listened to the John Gruber, talk show live?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, did you? You hear the bit where he says, and Craig, so how much are the wheels? And the other bloke pipes up without not actually saying anything, but he says, installment plans are available.
No. He asked if there's an installment plan.
I can't remember. And that was
implying that it's going to be very expensive.
A lot of money. Oh dear. There we are. I'm sure there'll be lovely wheels. Whether they'll be worth $250 is up to you. Well, but perhaps can you buy 2? Can you have 2 so that it's like a fridge? You pick it up and wheel it on just the back wheels.
or like what's that thing that usually construction people use?
Oh, what, the wheelbarrow?
Oh, wheelbarrow, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so there we go. No, I was very, obviously, the Mac Pro was a big highlight, a big piece of hardware, a big show, lots of fireworks. I thought it was a very good machine. I did not think it was excessively priced.
No, I don't.
I don't think the monitors are excessively priced for the technology they put in them. And I think the thing with the stand was merely poor presentation,
Yeah.
And Donny's right. It's not your only option. You don't have to buy that monitor. Lots of people who buy that machine will have perfectly good monitors already.
Yeah, and you miss that part about the Visa mount where it is attached magnetically?
Yeah.
Wow, that is... How the hell did they do that?
Yeah, exactly. What sort of magnets have they got in there? There we go. Oh dear. All right. Well, we'll move on. Obviously there's the iPad.
Let's talk about the intro video.
Okay.
That if you are not a developer, you would not resonate with it. But if you are a developer, it almost brought tears to my eyes. Yeah, the whole thing about staying up late and then coding and stuff. I tell you, I have been through that so many times, and I can relate to it like 100%. So it's a very well done video, I think.
Yes. I mean, I'm not a developer, but I got it immediately. I thought, I bet everybody who writes code, this is chiming with them, especially the bit where you see the people like throwing his pen or whatever it was because it didn't work, and he's like,
Yeah. And the best part is the tagline at the very end of the video. It's like, while the world sleep, you dream. Right? That is just the best part of the video.
I did think it was I did like that. I did think it was a very good intro, actually.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people forget that, yes, the keynote is pitched sort of half at the devs and half at the public, but obviously, the rest of WWDC is all about developers and code, and
it's much better than the developer dance by Balmer, right?
yeah. Although to be fair to poor old Steve Ballmer, I've always believed that his heart was in the right place with that, because it is true, without developers, no platform goes anywhere. And so, yeah, it might have, not, that might have been a PR fail in its own right, but I do believe, it was.
But the number of memes generated from oh my God.
Well, there we are. Well, Weyhan, you're obviously an iOS developer. Some people are saying that perhaps the biggest announcement of the whole keynote was something that kind of went under the radar of a lot of people, and that was the Swift UI.
Oh, by far. That is by far the biggest thing. It's like a whole paradigm shift. And not only that, it comes with a whole lot of supporting features, like the way Xcode handles the UI development. You have seen on stage the demo, right? During the keynote. You that is like to build a UI like that without Swift UI. I don't think you can do it in mere minutes, right? We are talking about sometimes even days. Just the table view alone is like, going to take at least half a day. Compared to that few minutes on stage, it is amazing, just amazing. It's going to change a lot of the way we develop for the UI, and especially when you compare to the previous paradigm where it's very storyboard centric, and storyboard is text data if you really open up the file, right? And that itself causes a lot of source control issue. If you have a storyboard and multiple person is working on the same storyboard, when it's time to put the code together, a lot of times you have to redo at least one of the person's work. Right? So this is huge. This is really, really big. And I cannot emphasize how big it is for a developer, but this is really big.
And because the other thing that goes with that is kind of the implication that Apple are going to be pushing towards Swift as their main development tool.
Oh, that has been clear for a while now, right? All the stuff that they have been doing, the improvement to their Objective-C site, right? Those are all effort to appease those who are being dragged, screaming and kicking over to the side, right? We have to smooth it. They have to smooth it over. They have to allow the Objective-C people to be, more at ease, and then slowly see the benefit of Swift, then, pull them over. Right? But I think in terms of PR move, I think they have done a very good job at it. And especially with the Swift UI, so many diehards Objective-C developers are now, on saying this on the social media, right? It's time to start learning Swift. And case in point is like Marco Arman, right? He also tweeted recently that says it's time to learn Swift.
Well, so yeah, I obviously not being a developer, but I did note that when I watched the keynote, and I thought this is almost being put in here almost like a throwaway segment, and yet I suspect that it's it's a tectonic shift in the way Apple are going to expect things to be done in the future.
Did you hear the gaps in the audience?
Yeah, I did. Yes. I mean, even Gruber said, didn't he, in that interview when they mentioned it, and he said, "Oh, I think I might be able to see how to make that thing go red."
yeah, exactly. It's so plain, right? And to be honest, I actually held my breath during that segment. Yes, that is one of the biggest thing for developer, definitely.
Excellent. And of course, the iPad got a differentiated iPad OS. That didn't surprise me in the least, I'll be honest. It's almost like finally, because the last 2 or 3 years they've been adding various things to the iPad on its own, and people have been saying the iPad needs its own special OS because it's not a phone. And you can make much more use of the screen estate if it had its own OS, and so now it does have its own OS. I don't have an iPad, so I can't really judge how big a thing that is. But Donny, you use the iPad, don't you?
Yeah, I don't. This happens every year. They show all these really cool features, but unless you remember to use them or get your workflow into using them, you just forget about them and they're not even there. But I think it remains to be seen once it comes out. I mean, it'll be cool if they keep adding more features to the iPad to make it easier to use. But a lot of the stuff they showed, like the expose and the stuff like that, I don't see myself using that much. But like the multiple windows, I barely use split screen now. Maybe I'll use it more now that it seems like it's easier to work. But it's not a bad thing, but I think it's something you have to remember that the features are there. And I think a lot of people won't even notice it.
I think my take on that was I think the kind of thrust there is that they're adding layers for the vocal minority who want those things.
Right.
The people like Federico Vitici and the people who want to basically use their iPad as a laptop replacement. But I think the point is, as long as they're layers which you can use if you bother to learn them or master them, but the average user who has no use for them can carry on using their iPad exactly as they did before.
Right.
In the sort of basic iOS, one window, one app paradigm. I
think if you put your mind to it and put the time into it to learn everything, it'll make it much more productive, but you just have to make it a point to learn it and use it.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned it on this show before. This is something that was pointed out by John Gruber, that he was asking some Apple engineer, and then not related to the iPad OS, but this is like before we're talking about the Mac OS, that is before the current one. What he said was the Apple engineer was talking about, if a user do not care about the advanced feature, like say on a Mac OS, like the shell prompt, right, the terminal windows and stuff. If the user has no interest in those advanced features and somehow stumble on it, and it means that they have failed, right? And on the other side, if someone were interested in those kind of feature and they could not find it, it is also a failure for them. So if they continue with with this kind of mindset, I think it should be fine. they will keep refining the whole paradigm, and until one day it will click and one day it will fit, right? So that is from the perspective of Apple. But as a developer, this is how I read the iPad OS. Right? It is basically telling the developers to, get with the program. The iPad is a different thing. Don't develop it like it is the iPhone, because it won't work. Right? You have so much screen and whatnot. Because you look at the iPad after 10 years, and still not many is able to get a real grasp on how to develop for the iPad. So that's why you see a lot of phone application, phone apps that is being, exploded into a iPad screen size, which is bad, right? And this is a signal that Apple is telling the people, get out from the mindset that you are developing for iOS. This is now the iPad OS. So in a sense, this is a psychological thing, right? So, when you constrain your mind in a way, the product that you produce will be within the constraint, right? So Apple is telling you, okay, take away the constraint, move to the side of the iPad. This is a new thing. I think this is what they are saying. Right?
Yeah,
and
that's
and also is also to shut up the critics. Right? You know how many years people have been saying that iPad is the consumption device, cannot be used for this, that. Even when the stuff about the unification of iPad and Mac OS, people are like, all those iPad apps are subpar, and then you bring it over to the Mac, it's not good. So this is a way to shut them up and say, look, this is iPad OS. This is not anything, right?
I'm also thinking in the way that you're saying it's psychological. I think it's also saying the same thing to the consumers. It's putting it out there that this is a different device. It's not just a big iPhone. It's not just a giant.
Now.
It's a different beast. And like you just said, if you have a mindset that something is a certain way, that's how your product will turn out. I remember hearing Johnny Ive say on a program, an interview, that when they start with a product, they almost try and deconstruct what it is and how they think about it. Because if you say we're going to make a lunchbox, that by its very definition makes you think of a box.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you never think about a cylinder or
well, yeah,
or a slab
or anything like how do we deconstruct what it is we want to achieve so that we're not immediately hobbling ourselves with preconceived ideas. So yeah.
Well, there's also the thing that the iPad started as a consumption device, and remember Steve Jobs sitting in the chair on the stage showing how he could read the newspaper or websites, and it was more of a consumption device when it came out, and it's just evolved into what it is today. And they're hoping, I think eventually it will become a laptop replacement for a lot of people.
I think that's very much true. I mean, as they I can't remember if it was I think it probably was Craig Federighi on the talk show saying, you have to understand that when we started out, we were very, very constrained by the technology that we could put into that tablet.
Yeah, not only that, right? What Apple is trying to do is to get the developer to help them figure out like how to make this into a production device. And if you ask me, right, the developer community have failed miserably. Maybe cannot be helped because the technology constraint is also there, right? So, but the point is, since the iPad Pro have came out, right, I still find that the people are not able to produce good production app because there are a lot of constraint in the mindset. That is one of the biggest reason why they decide, okay, let's do the split.
Yeah. Yes. I just think there's probably a whole raft of reasons why they've chosen now to do it. And to to some extent, lots of people, and we know that the tech press do not represent the average man in the street, but there was, I think, very much a cry of finally. So, yeah.
I think with what Weyhan said, also, I think a lot of companies rush to make a iPad version of their product, not thinking about how it works on the iPad versus the computer, and they try to make it too computer-like. But then there's companies like Affinity, which everyone knows I'm a fan of, and I know Simon's a fan of, and when they turn Designer and Photo into iPad apps, they are iPad apps, and they're made to work on the iPad, and they work on the iPad the way you would expect them to. It's not a clone of what's on the Mac.
No, that's
no shit.
that is true. And just a quick aside, actually, as we're talking about, you mentioned Affinity there. Did you spot that Serif got a name check both on one of the slides and verbally?
Yeah, I saw that. The logo or something was up.
Yeah, the logo was on one of the slides. That was in the Mac Pro section, actually, saying that they would be, supporting the Mac Pro and the Afterburner and all the shenanigans that goes with that.
I think the sidecar stuff they were on too.
Yes, I think they were. We'll talk about sidecar in a minute, but I will just say, while we're talking about Affinity, the Affinity Suite has updated to version 1.7 this week, and the publisher, Affinity Publisher, will be leaving beta. It's been announced that will go live on the 19th of June, and to celebrate this, Serif are having a 20% off everything in their store. So that's all of their apps and all of their add-ons, their brush packs and workbooks and all sorts of things. So if you're in the least bit interested in checking out the Serif Affinity range, now would be a good time to hop on over to their website and have a look. There we go. And I will be attempting, because I'm sure he'll be a very busy man, but I will be attempting to see if we can get Ashley from Serif back on to talk to us about publisher and all the improvements in version 1.7. There we go.
I'm going to click order.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's face it. At the moment, with a 20% discount, that brings it down from £50 UK to £40 UK, basically. Which means you can get a complete suite, including a photo app, a vector drawing app, and a page layout app for 120 quid.
And no subscription.
And no subscription. There we go. And widely applauded as on par with the Adobe suite. There we go. What else? Sidecar. Let's talk about Sidecar.
What's the company that they Sherlock?
Well, there's two. Well, there's at least two. There's Luna and another one called Duet.
Yeah.
Who do who've been around for a couple of years at least, and the idea is that it allows you to use your iPad as a second screen. I'm not sure quite how Sherlock they've actually been, because if you look at the official list of Macs that support Sidecar, it's pretty small. You've got to have one of the very newest Macs basically for it to work.
And Luna, you can use all over your house, where Sidecar I think is meant to be like a second monitor more so than something to walk around.
Yeah, and also they pointed out again, I think it was on the talk show, or maybe it was somewhere else. Apple have made it clear that the apart from pencil support in apps that support tablets or tablet input, that the iPad in Sidecar is effectively a second display. It's not touch enabled.
Except for you
touch.
can use Apple Pencil with it,
yes,
and that will become like a touch surface.
Yes, but it will not be. It doesn't turn it into a touch panel, as it were. It's not finger touch enabled while it's in that mode.
Yeah, because it will be quite difficult to use, if you ask me. Right, if you try to touch on buttons that are desktop size, and also don't forget that when the Sidecar is on, the size of the display is most likely going to be shrink down further, right?
Yeah.
So the touch target is going to be very, very tiny, and is
Yeah.
if you have used something like that before, you would know that is not an experience to enjoy.
No, it's not. And that is what Apple have made clear, that they are treated, in sidecar mode, your iPad is treated as another screen for your Mac, and it's designed to be used with what they described as a precision pointer, i.e. the pencil or the mouse. So obviously,
if you think about it, more so than hurting Luna's business, with the pencil support, I could see it hurting Wacom's tablet.
yes,
definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, I very much think that the people who would suffer most from this will be low end tablets, drawing tablets.
Even the high end, because it's basically makes your iPad a Cintiq for your computer.
Well, that is true.
Yeah.
And the Cintiqs are not cheap, are they?
They're $1,000. I think 800 you can get one for.
And I have heard. I personally don't have any experience with the Cintiq, but I have heard many have claimed that the experience on the Cintiq is not as good as say a straight up iPad, right? When you have say a art drawing app like Affinity or like Procreate and stuff, right?
I think. I mean, I've seen the Cintiq. We had Wacom came to our Mac user group a few years back, and they, as well as obviously demoing a variety of the tablets, consumer tablets, the Bamboo and so on. They brought a Cintiq to show us. I think at the time the Cintiq for your iMac would set you back about $2,000.
Yeah, but how about the usage, right? I heard there's a lot of lag and stuff.
I used a Cintiq, and I didn't see lag as far as a Cintiq, but once I got the pencil on the iPad, drawing on the iPad with Procreate is just it's just another experience. It's just more.
Yeah,
I like it a lot better.
I think the answer there is that the Cintiq is brilliant, was brilliant. But there's, in the way it works, there's going to be an inherent. You have to have an inherent amount of, well, not necessarily lag, but do you know what I mean? There's a processing overhead that has to be gone through. You're drawing on a glass sheet which is on the front of your your iMac or whatever, and then that has to be processed and then sent to the app you're using. Whereas obviously
I never saw lag.
No,
I had used Cintiq, none at all, and that was on a 2011 iMac. So it worked fine. It's just I think it's more natural. I don't know. It's just something about drawing on the iPad with the pencil.
I think that you've also got the thing, of course, Donny, that the iPad A is designed specifically with that kind of thing in mind, but also they've built that incredible sort of 120 frames per second refresh, smooth flow screen technology, which I think you're right. Basically, I think that it's going to probably do more harm to somebody like Wacom than it is to Luna or Duet, both of whom I've got a link. Both of whom have come out, as it were, not quite out of their corner fighting, but have come out saying, we've been doing this for a while, and we can offer. We offer things that Apple's Sidecar does not offer. So I think there's room. I think there's room for all of them. A lot of people often say, "Oh, Apple have Sherlocked this, and that's the end of them." And often it's not so at all, because companies who do specific things may be a niche market, but Ferrari's a niche market. They do very well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's not like the Sherlock of the old, right? Nowadays, when you see that Apple have Sherlock some company, a lot of times they will still survive, but they need to adapt, right? They need to offer more than what Apple offers.
Yeah, exactly.
But speaking of the pencil's also, and lag, is supposed to have be faster and less lag. Not that there's much noticeable lag anyway right now.
Well, yeah, they've trimmed the latency allegedly from what was it, 20 milliseconds to 9. That's pretty good going.
I was shouting at my TV during the keynote. Like literally, I was shouting, "How?
How? Yeah, indeed. How do you do this? It's magic. It's magic. Dark magic, Weyhan. Somewhere deep below the spaceship, dark rituals are being performed.
Yeah, it must be alien technology, right?
Exactly.
Well, they have the spaceship now, so.
Yeah.
I saw, actually, this is totally aside, but I saw a fairly hilarious meme during the week, which was it had sort of a montage of things like the Great Pyramids of Egypt and Easter Island statues and a whole load of things like that all over it. And then the kicker line was, just because white people didn't do it doesn't mean it was aliens. There we go. I thought that was excellent. Of course, Dashboard. Talking of things getting Sherlocked, Dashboard, which is one of the original Sherlocking things, which killed Confabulator, is dead. Apple are killing off the Dashboard. And yes, we had much hilarity in the Slack room about this, didn't we? Because I don't think I've turned on Dashboard in many, many years, and even when it was something that was still shouted about, I used it almost not at all. I suspect there are a very, very small number of people who use it a lot and will be very, very sad to see it go, but they are probably a fraction of 1% of users.
I just opened it on my computer for the first time in who knows how long, probably 10 years. And all the icons look like they have like the glossy finish, like they haven't even updated the look of it since it came out. It looks like OS 10 when it first came out with the shiny stuff, like the glass looking buttons.
But you know, right? The Apple did not really kill the dashboard. It just migrated to the iPad.
Yeah,
that's true.
Partly true, I think. Yeah, partly true. I'm just going to go now. In fact, I'm not even sure I can get it to turn on mine. Dashboard is off. Turn on dashboard.
I didn't bother. I did not bother with that. That is how much I care about the dashboard.
I've not. I really don't think I've used the dashboard.
I remember there were Pac-Man games for it, and when I was teaching at the time, we put a bunch of little games in it on the Emacs we had, and some of the kids would play the games on it. Somehow that reminds me of the YouTube game. Do you know about the YouTube game?
No.
When there was some years ago, I don't know whether they still have it, but when the video is loading, you notice there's a ball that turns around in the center. It turns in a circle, and if you press the direction button at that time, the screen will turn into a game of Snake.
Really?
Which is very interesting. And it started off as April Fool's joke, but then it was kept, I think. It was kept for a long time, but I don't know whether they still have it running or not. Maybe can try.
There's one way to find out, right?
Yeah.
Oh dear.
But stuff loads so fast now, there wouldn't be time to try it, probably.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? You have to slow down your internet to buy it.
Pull that old modem out of the closet.
Yeah, right. And obviously we've been talking about the keynote. Weyhan, of course, you have your script, don't you, available for people who, if they wish to pull down a high definition version. Right?
It's not technically my script. It's this there's this guy that I came across in this GitHub. I don't think he has a Twitter. At least I couldn't find his Twitter handle, so I could not attribute. But his GitHub username is Ohachuk.
Okay.
Right? Is that how you pronounce that? OHOACHUCK. Ohachuk.
Okay.
But in any case, right, this script is a video downloader that is written specifically to download WWDC video. What I have added, I contributed to the project by adding the feature to download the stream instead of the video that is on the link on the video page. Because if you download the high def video from the link on the web page, it gives you the 720p video, but from the stream you can get up to 1080p. So from this year onwards, you can download the 1080p and then watch it on your TV screen, which is, or as programmers, right? We really want to have the highest possible definition video because there is a lot of code on video. The more blurrier it is, the more difficult it is to see what is on the screen. So, that's one of the reasons.
And as you say, and the other reason, of course, is for all those people who want to download it and read all the stuff on those slides that they don't mention.
Yeah, and the script is available on GitHub. It's called WWDC-downloader, or we'll have it in the show note too.
Yep,
right?
It's in the show notes. It will be in the show notes. So if anybody wants to get the script so that they can download a 1080p version of the WWDC keynote, and also, of course, all the sessions and video slides, which is more important probably for people like Weyhan, who would like to review, the various sessions, or anybody else who's interested in, getting, say, the State of the Union address or various others. Right. Well, I've got a couple of things I'd like to mention before we sign off, as it were. Apple is apparently changing the podcast categories. There's a link in here from Pod News. Some people are up in arms about this. Overall, they simply seem to be shuffling a lot of the categories around. But I did notice that the sort of area that we fall in, sort of technology news discussion, seems to have been axed, and in theory we would be recategorized as news technology, which seems like an odd choice, but there we go. I've just mentioned that. There's a link if anybody wants to see what Apple are proposing there. Now this one's a slightly an odd one, because Huawei are obviously talking about building their own OS by forking Android because Google have blacklisted them. Google have said that this would be a security risk because it wouldn't be as secure as Google's version of Android. There's a piece here from VentureBeat which says Google is contradicting its own open source arguments, which I agree with, actually. And also, it just seems to me that if they're going to take this view that if Huawei take Android and build their own OS from it, that somehow that's wrong, and yet at the same time they're saying Android is open, but actually Android isn't really that open, is it? Because you could, if you want to have the full Google Android, you as an OEM, you are forced to take all of the Google services, and if not, you have to build them all yourself. So I think Google are trying to have their cake and eat it there, really. They're trying to fend off, anti-competitive, investigation by saying that actually Android is open to all, whilst in fact keeping a tight grip on it and forcing everybody who uses it to include all the Google services. So there we go.
Yeah, increasingly, whenever Google or now Alphabet makes any announcement about their stuff, that increasingly the chance of their foot in the mouth is so high nowadays.
Yeah. So there we go. Also, Microsoft have deleted a massive face recognition database. Apparently, there's a link here to the BBC News. Of course, apparently they compiled a large database to train face recognition. And this database consisted mostly of images taken from online, so largely celebrities and journalists and such like people. And they have said that they have deleted it, but several people have pointed out that a data set is never really gone because various people have at various times had access to it, and therefore this data set will live on the internet forever. There we go. I've got a couple of worth of chirps. One of them's Donny's. Donny says, I don't like the Magic Mouse personally, but Target has it on sale for $40 with a link. So for those of you in the US. Also, at the time of recording, Mashable Shop have a sale where they are offering an Apple iMac 21.5 inch i3 dual core with a 250 gigabyte SSD for only $379. This is a certified refurbished. And yes, I guess my view of that was it's only an i3. It's only got 4 gig of RAM, and it's it's only a 21.5 inch. It's also only $379 while stocks last. So link to that.
It also doesn't say which year is it, right?
That's what I was looking at.
No, it doesn't. Do we know? Does it? Anyway, there you go. You would not get an iMac as cheap as that very often. There we go. So I'll point that one out.
But looking at the hard disk size, right? I have a feeling that you might not even be able to run Mojave. It could be that old.
Okay.
See, here's the model number. I'm going to look it up.
Okay. We have another one. I think this one came from Mac Jim, which is called Seek by iNaturalist. And this is an app free from the App Store where you can photograph, animals and plants around you in the real world. And it's kind of gamified. It's a sort of, what did you describe it as, Donny? I think you described it as Pokemon Go for the real world.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. Just the snippets this week. Skype screen sharing is now out of beta on iOS and Android. Whoop-de-doo. Why on earth you would wish to share your screen through Skype on iOS or Android?
I'll tell you why. Because the amount of calls I get from family members and other people saying, I don't know how to do this on my iPad, or my iPad is not working right. If I could say, let me see your screen and I can tell you exactly what to do, I would do this if it works.
Fair enough.
Now,
okay.
if I could control the screen even more, so that'd be even better.
Okay. And sadly, the Maker Faire company have shuttered and laid off all their staff, which is rather sad. Maker Faire of the Maker magazine and the Maker Fairs around, the US and possibly elsewhere. I thought that was a bit of a sad story, really.
Yeah.
There we are.
But it's it's also interesting because if you go on YouTube a lot, right, you find that the makers culture is actually booming. Yeah. I wonder why. It seems a bit counterintuitive, right? What is did the article say what's the reason they shut down?
They're not making any money, and some of their big sponsors have pulled out and refused to sponsor them anymore. It just seems...
probably moving their ad money to like YouTube videos and whatnot. Because I've seen so many videos on there that is teaching people to make this or that and stuff.
Oh yeah, very much so. It is a lot. So I just thought that was a bit sad, really. There we are. Any joy there, Donny, on the iMac?
Yeah, I just found, if I found the right one, it looks like it's 2010. So
yeah,
it definitely wouldn't run Mojave.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, the newest Mac OS you can run is probably, what was that? What's the latest one?
High Sierra, probably.
I would say maybe
High Sierra.
High Sierra.
Yeah.
Sierra maybe at the most.
No, it would be High Sierra, because if you can run Sierra, you can run High Sierra. And
Uh,
It'd be a great machine for a child or like a student.
yeah,
interestingly, High Sierra triggered my Siri.
Oh dear. Right. Well, on that note, then, after what we all feel was probably one of the most exciting WWDCs in years, and one, I'm with Weyhan. I think this WWDC is going to have repercussions for many years to come. I can't remember who it was. Somebody on Twitter said that this year is kind of, makes a break for, like we had 1984 to whenever the PowerPC age was, and we had PowerPC to Intel. This is a shift of that, of that magnitude. We will see it as the sort of Mac OS 10 Apple ecosystem V3 or whatever. So there we go.
It makes you wonder what's coming next year, because this is just the start with the iPad OS and.
The most obvious thing, of course, is the what do you call that? Mac on the ARM processor.
Yeah.
Right. So that probably is the most obvious thing. Whether it will happen or not, okay, in terms of guesses, where Apple is going with this probably has something to do with ARM as well. The split between iPad OS and the rest of iOS for the phones and the iPod is going to be wider and wider, definitely.
Oh yes, very much so. I think
so. Whether will the iPhone OS come back? Who knows, right? So there are so many other things that is released in this WWDC keynote. Right? We just could not cover everything. But
no way. There was so much stuff. Things we haven't even talked about. I mean, we haven't even talked about Project Catalyst and the effect that's going to have. But I'm no doubt
all the features that Craig said was coming to iTunes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was funny. Yeah. That was funny, wasn't it? Yeah. So why don't iTunes? We can put in email and calendars and notes. Nailed it. Or maybe not. He does have he is actually very good at dropping the kind of witty, somewhat self-deprecating things. And that one was brilliant, because that wasn't just a sort of a two-liner, was it? That was worked up to.
He put significant amount of time into that joke. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and I will just mention it because of course there were the emoji, the Animoji. They had the little segment with the sort of YouTube influencers. I thought that was actually a very good way to present that feature, to get it thing. And I know it seems frivolous. I know it seems a bit frivolous that more Animoji, more Memoji options, more hair colours, more earrings, but I think that's actually a big thing for kind of inclusion and diversity.
I have no problem with that.
Go ahead.
I have no problem with that. I think it's fine. The half the world's population are females, so we cannot say that everything have to be masculine and stuff. So I'm fine with that.
It was it was good, and I thought it was good to see an interesting range of people up on the stage as well. Have you noticed that they've become more and more
on the wheelchair?
Well, yeah. There was the woman in the wheelchair. There were various women. There were various. I'm just saying, it's nice to see. I think over the last few years, they've definitely become more focused on allowing people who are part of the team who've done the work to come out and present the product. We've definitely moved away from the age of there's Tim and Phil and Craig and maybe Eddie, and that's your lot. Because after Steve, passed away, the first few the first few WWDCs were very much kind of here's Tim, here's Craig, here's Eddie, here's Phil, and they've definitely moved away from that.
Yeah, I would imagine, the shock, the around the time where Steve Jobs passed away. I think they had a few years of shock, and you can see as a result some things are not moving as, because they're still trying to find their footing, without a very important person in the company.
Well, I think, of course, particularly when you're talking about the WWDC keynote, I mean, the WWDC keynote in the Steve era was very much the Steve show, wasn't it?
Oh, definitely.
It was Steve. Steve came on and dominated that stage, and, he was a consummate showman. And yes,
he definitely.
He could, he really could make you believe that black was white when he was on that stage. Reality distortion field was not coined for no good reason. But now they've moved on, and I'm feeling a lot more positive, actually. In the last couple of years about Apple, finding their feet again. They did seem to be a bit confused. So that's good. Right. Well, I think that's enough of us. Shall we? We'll do the wrap up now. So, Weyhan, do you want to go first? Is there anything places where people can find you or your works?
It's still the same. I'm on Twitter as Weyhan. I'm on GitHub also as Weyhan. If you're a fellow developer and would like to look at my work. And of course, I'm still maintaining the writing app called Compo. You can put it in the show notes.
Yep, it's in the show notes.
Yeah, if you're a writer, check it out. It's free now, and most likely I need to put in some time to adopt it to the next iOS. Dark mode and all. Currently, it already have a dark mode, but it's control in app. So maybe I need to adopt it to be follow the system settings and whatnot. So there you go.
Okay, and Donny, of course, would you like to list your vast empire of retail outlets?
We'll make it short. At RTTEACHR on Twitter. Find me, look me up in the App Store or the iBook Store or Bookstore, whatever it's called now. For all that stuff in there, I have a new sticker pack called Scribble Dudes that just came out, and I'm starting a new project called twofundads.com with a family member, and there's a free sticker pack for that, and a whole bunch of other stuff that'll be in the show notes.
Yeah, it's all in the show notes. And I am, of course, on the Twitters as @Serenak, and that's SERENAK. The show is @Essential Apple. All the stuff is, of course, on essentialapple.com. And that's about it. Thank you to everybody who supports us in any way whatsoever. Thank you to all the slackers. And I think we'll say goodbye now, and we'll be back next week. So, goodbye.
Goodbye.
See ya.
There is a portable accessory that should be included with every iPhone, every smartphone, every camera, every GoPro, every car. It's a life-changing device. It's called the Gecko Pod, GEKKOPOD. Website is geckopod.com. Cost in the U.S. is $20. You can get it in 4 different colors: black, magenta, cyan, and green. Read the description: a flexible tripod that adjusts to any surface. And it means any surface. We've talked about this before. A tree, a car, a microphone stand, a lab table, a desk, a chair. It can hold all smartphones, action cameras, compact cameras in countless positions. Lots of pictures on the web of people using it. The mount is easy to use and quick to set up with a myriad of uses practically anywhere and everywhere, even hung on a nail. They've got a new mobile pack that includes the adapter for the GoPro and also a Bluetooth remote for iOS and Android. $20 for this thing. You can't believe you lived this long without it. Yesterday, at the rehearsal for my band, it's called the Cactus Pickers, I needed to hang my iPhone on a mic stand to record our rehearsal. No problem. Just slip the phone into the spring. Here's the spring. Slip the phone into the spring on the top and wrap the 5 feet or legs, very flexible, but also firm and really good grippers around the mic stand in the middle of the room, and I got a decent recording. I have used this so often. Have you ever heard of a heads-up display for a car? Well, you can do this by attaching the Gecko Pod to your phone and just hanging it from your rearview mirror. There are lots of uses for it. Please go to the website, geckopod.com. I use mine all the time. Whenever I'm giving a workshop and somebody can't be there, I record it. I just snap the phone into the upper part, holds it really nice and firmly, can record it, put it anywhere in the room so everybody can be heard. So many uses for the Gecko Pod. Apple should buy 100 million of these things in different colors and include them when people get their phones. What a great value-added gift and product this is. Get one today. You will be overjoyed to have it in your life. That's it for Nemo's Hardware Store.
You've been listening to the Essential Apple podcast, and I'd like to say if you enjoy the show and would like to support us, feel free to go over to the website essentialapple.com and you will find links to both Patreon and the Pinecast Tips Jar, where you can make a donation towards the costs of the show, or even if you're really keen, you could set up a recurring payment. And thank you very, very much to all the people who already do support us. We really do appreciate you very much indeed. This show is, of course, part of the My Mac Podcasting Network, where you can find a variety of other shows like the My Mac Podcast with Guy and Gaz, the G-Men, Tech Fan with Tim and David, the Nintendo Club podcast, the geekiest show ever, the Three Geeky Ladies, Bart Bouchot's and his wonderful Let's Talk Apple, and possibly some more that I forgot. So why not go over to mymac.com, take a look at the available podcasts, and take a listen.
Yeah, I think just a straight ad, don't you?
Yeah.
Like what? What would we say? Like Tech Fan Podcast or?
Are you interested in technology and gadgets?
Uh-huh.
Do you want to listen to two guys who know technology and gadgets?
Are we claiming to be those guys?
Yes. Well, there we go. Are we claiming to be those guys? You be the judge. Tech Fan Podcast.
No, that'll work. Let's use that as an ad.
Okay.
This has been the Essential Apple Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show and we look forward to you joining us again another time. Until then, goodbye.
My mind has not completely complete the blown up yet, so I'm still blowing my mind.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there was so much stuff in there. It's like and it was 2.5 hours, and it didn't even feel like two. I mean, there have been keynotes I've watched in the past, and you're like, come on, really? You're still whittering on about bloody emojis
Yeah.
or stickers in message. Really, it's not that big a deal. But I mean, this time it really was like. I mean, there was even the bit when where the crowd started clapping, and Craig was like, "No, look, we've got so much. No, stop. We've got loads to do. I haven't got time to stop for you to clap."
But as much as they rush it, right? It doesn't feel like it is too much of a rush. If you know what I mean.
No, it didn't.
Because
it didn't feel rushed, did it? But
yeah,
it certainly
because
felt
there are definitely years that it actually felt very, very tight, and everybody is like thinking, and then sometimes the way they speak is like overly fast and stuff.
No, it was an amazing keynote. Totally, awash with announcements and very little fluff. I mean, there's some years, some years you get the bit where they're whittering on for ages about the buttery scrolling and whatnot. It's like, you're filling here. You know what I mean? So
I forgot to ask just now. What's the biggest feature for you?
We never even mentioned it. I mean, Apple sign-on is huge. The Apple sign-on was huge for me, I guess, because I'm interested in it, not because I will ever buy one. The Mac Pro, fascinated me. As is often the way with the keynote, the thing that you think is important or is most interesting in the week or two after is not the thing that turns out to be the most important in the long run, which is why the whole Swift UI thing caught my attention because I did just obviously it's not my field, but I just saw it and I thought, you're making almost nothing out of this, and yet I suspect this is possibly one of the biggest announcements in this keynote.
If you if you see my Twitter feed, right, so many people is like, because I follow a lot of developers, right? So such a big thing in the whole community. Everybody is like, wow.
Yeah,
when I first heard it, right, because I couldn't understand. When I first heard the rumors, it wasn't even it was described almost exactly like how it's described on the keynote, but at that time there is no visualization that I cannot see what is it talking about. And later when they did the demo and and when I saw it, it's like, wow. It's like when is the next version going to come out? Damn, it's going to be fall.
I remember when I was younger on the Commodore 64, they used to come out with like make your own games, and it was drag and drop, and you'd say do this and jump. It just reminded me of that almost. I'm sure there's more to it, but it reminded me a lot of those type of things.
Oh, it's a lot more sophisticated than that, and it is incredible that you can do so many things with so little. That is very incredible.
But the question is, will it solve my constraint nightmares that I keep bugging you about?
Did you notice in all the demos there was no single mention about constraint?
You're right.
Right. It's a big,
that's a nightmare.
There is a reason why they did not mention constraint is because it's not there anymore.
Oh, right? It's not?
It's not there anymore. What they are doing is that they are using a lot of what they call that, the stacks, using like vertical stacks and horizontal stacks, right? Which we already have now, but the stacks that we apply in the storyboard is not as good. Somehow it doesn't have the smarts of this the Swift UI. So I'm suspecting behind the scene they put a lot of default in it, and it looks like it works a lot better than the trying to be fiddly with the constraint.
Should it be more like if you're laying something out in pages, for example, and what you do, it should just stay that way?
Not exactly so, because it adapts itself. you think of it as you put in like slot. Okay, so like for vertical stack, so this is like this will come after this and after this and after this, right? If you need to space it apart, you put a spacer in between, right? And for the what do you call it, the horizontal stack is that you're going to put this element next to this element next to it, this element. So you break it up into grid that can fit your element on the screen. So I think it does it intelligently in the sense that it will know how to adjust its size based on the whatever that is available. So it's more like an auto constraint. I wouldn't say that the constraint is not there anymore. It's just that they are doing a lot of things for you. And if you are doing something that you really absolutely need to put in some constraint, at that point I think you're doing it wrong. So right. So this is the new system, right? That is why it's like I still can't get over how amazed I am with it.
Simon, just Weyhan's been helping me behind the scenes, pointing me in directions with an app I'm working on. And
that's fine. I kind of gathered that. Layout is the thing, yeah.
Yeah, it's the current system is very fiddly and whatnot. You take out one and then you try to put it back, it will never go back the same way. You know, it's like those Apple packages. When you take it apart, you cannot put it back in.
or it'll be like laying something out in Illustrator or something, and you have it looking exactly the way you want, and then you run it, and it looks like it's been through a blender and nothing like that.
yeah, exactly.
Nothing comes out where you expect. Yeah.
It's so fiddly. It's amazing. It's like this. Even before this Swift UI comes out, like officially, I'm thinking to myself, how have I lived before this?
How did I get by? Well, this is
Yeah.
this is what we.
But it
want.
looks like it'll make it a lot easier for people like me that aren't like that are trying to dabble in it and learn it.
Oh, definitely. Because if you look at the app development side, right? Developers should not be doing UI, right? The UI should be done by artists or UI expert, people who have some artistic sense and who can design, like what color to put on a font, what color to put on the background and stuff like that. So developer has the worst sense of design. They just cannot do design. So if you ask the non-developer to do the storyboard and whatnot, you will see the hair falling out faster than anything. Right? So it's very difficult for people who don't understand the system to work with it. So the Swift UI is perfect. It's just perfect for non-developers. I think this is going to be a very huge drive for the kind of position in the companies, right? The development the development team and whatnot. So probably they have like a designer that does solely on design, and they can focus on it, right? They don't have to think about this constraint and that constraint and stuff. So I think this is going to be huge, beyond even like just from a developer's perspective.
Right. But yeah, well, there we go. Right, well, I'm going to get off now because I'm going to put my beef in the oven.
Okay.
If I don't get my beef in the oven at a sensible time, I won't get to eat it until midnight. That would not be a good thing. So, right, I'm gonna clear off. But thanks anyway, boys. Fabulous.
Okay, I'm hanging up too.
All right then.
See ya.
See you.
All right, see you.
Bye.
Bye.